Hello everybody. We're going to start the meeting even though we haven't got everybody here, and we're going to go up to item 4, and then we may have to stop and wait for people to arrive. Okay everybody? So, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. And that's what I've been doing for the last month. Every time I started something, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. So, good evening ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Council. I'll start with the domestic arrangements for the meeting. A pack has been prepared containing all reports published last week, called Virtual Pack for Meeting. This supplement, published this morning, contains the 2 final documents. Please use these packs so we are all using the same page numbers. As this is the budget meeting, we will allow 15 minutes as a maximum for the main speakers. Mobile devices. Please ensure that all electronic equipment is either on silent mode or switched off to minimise interruption. Members are reminded that if you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature, or if you're in the Civic Centre, please physically raise your hand. If we have any technical difficulties, which we've already had, officers will attempt to reconnect members either via Teams or by their telephone. And please can I remind members dialing in from home to ensure that they cannot be overheard by others due to the sensitive nature of this meeting. And I think that is really important, everybody, just to make sure you've got your doors shut and nobody else is listening. Voting will be undertaken by roll call. The monitoring officer will call out members' names alphabetically. If any members are dialing into the meeting using a telephone, please can they remember to dial *6 when they wish to unmute during a vote, for example. And the meeting is being live screened during open session for members of the public to watch. Please, public contributions were requested to be received in writing 2 working days prior to the meeting. So at this point, I can welcome anybody who is watching on YouTube. I hope you have a very enjoyable evening. I'm sure you will. Have we got any apologies for absence?
None received.
Thank you, Gary. And what about the minutes for Wednesday, the 27th of January? I call upon the Leader of the Council, Paul Foster, to move that these minutes are approved.
Madam Mayor.
It's after, Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I'm happy to move that the minutes be approved.
Thank you. And Councillor Tomlinson seconded it. And was it Councillor Greene that said? Was it Councillor Michael Greene?
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, Madam Mayor.
Good evening, Councillor.
It was to give apologies on behalf of Councillor Fairbairn, who is working away. He does hope to join the meeting at some point, but he's on emergency work, so he may be late or may not be able to make it at all.
All right, thank you, Councillor Greene. Thank you. We noted that. Thank you. Are there any questions on points of accuracy for the minutes? No, can't see. No, thank you. Right, item 3. Sorry? Oh, we're having a vote. Sorry, I missed that bit out. We're having a vote. Yeah, Chris, you doing it?
In the absence of anyone commenting on the minutes, we can accept them as a true record by common assent.
Slaps. I'll get it. I'll learn how to do this in a bit, won't I, all this technology. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any peculiar interest in respect of matters contained within this agenda. As this is a virtual meeting, if a member has a peculiar interest, they are requested to leave the call completely rather than just mute their microphone. The member can then rejoin the call following the completion of the item in question. Are there any declarations of interest? Not in the room. Right, thank you. No indications. And now it's my announcements. Right. I've been extremely busy in the last few weeks, mainly obviously virtual because there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. But I've been interviewed on Radio Leyland, and we're now planning to do a monthly update of what the Mayor's been doing. So that's something I've been doing. On Friday, I was interviewed by Radio Lancashire, and did a declaration for that all the mayors seem to be doing across Lancashire to say thank you to people who've done things during the pandemic. And I added to the list by thanking everybody who'd gone the extra mile in South Ribble. I've also been recording the stories that the children have written. Please, please, please get on the Mayor of South Ribble's Facebook page and listen to the stories. They are wonderful. They are written by the children and I've not altered a word. So some of them make no sense whatsoever, but they are wonderful. So please, please, if you want cheering up, go and just go and listen to them. They're wonderful. So I've been recording those. I'm recording some more tomorrow, and they go out on Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And what else have I been doing? And I've recorded some monologues which will be going out for the next 3 Saturdays, just for fun. So that's what I've been doing. I'm running out of dressing up clothes, though, I must admit. I keep putting different hats and different scarves, and I'm now running out. So that's what I've been doing. And now we're on to item 5. Now, has everybody come on board now? No, yeah, we're carrying on. So now it's the Cabinet, and this item is for noting. So please can I ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Paul Foster, to present his report of the Cabinet to Council.
Thanks, Mayor. I have the pleasure of presenting the report of the meeting of the Cabinet that took place on Wednesday, the 10th of February 2021. The report is quite self-explanatory. It covers the discussions the Cabinet had about presenting the budget tonight, so we'll deal with that shortly. An update on the Mackenzie Arms development, the provision of the loan and grant to the good people of Hull Village Memorial Hall, and the decision for the award of the ICT hardware, software and support. And I'll answer any questions on my colleagues will that any members may have, Mayor. Thank you.
Any questions to the lead? Anything that anybody wants to? No indications, thank you. Is that noted? Thank you very much. Okay. Yes. Discussion because people are still not online. We're now on item 6, which is Scrutiny Committee. And again, this is for noting. Can I ask the Chair of Scrutiny, Councillor David Howard, to present his report for the Scrutiny Committee? Thank you. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the report is there as set out. There were 2 items which we scrutinised at the last meeting. The first one was the budget, which is being presented this evening, where we asked a number of questions and welcomed the opportunity to scrutinise the budget. Unfortunately, we could only scrutinise what was put before us as opposed to what's appeared this morning. So we scrutinised the budget as it's been presented by the Cabinet. The second item was Worden Hall progress update. We're now well on with Worden Hall. Progress is being made, and we have decided not to have this as a standing item at every meeting now, but to have it on a less frequent basis given the progress that has been made. So that said, Madam Mayor, I move the report.
Second that.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor Greene. Are there any questions from any members? No indications. Thank you. And now that is just for noting. Thank you very much, Councillor Howard. And now on item 7, and this is changes to committee membership. This item is for decision. There are 2 appointments to be made. And Councillor Paul Foster, can you please set out the appointments?
Thanks, Mayor. The 2 appointments being proposed tonight are that Councillor Carol Chisholm be appointed as the Conservative member to the vacancy on the Appeals Committee, and secondly that Councillor James Flannery be appointed to the Lancashire Enterprise Partnership Joint Scrutiny Committee as the South Ribble Borough Council representative. Thank you.
And is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Are there any questions? No, thank you. Right, that is.
In the absence of any comments or any indications to the contrary, that can be accepted by common assent. Oh, right. Sorry,
Councillor Chisholm. You there? Are you muted?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Yes, I am muted. I just wanted to share my thanks on the appointment. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Right. Now we're on to item 8 now. Is everybody online for this? Because this is important. Or are we going to... Everybody's online? Good. Okay. Right. Item 8. The General Fund Revenue and Capital Budget and Council Tax 2021 to 22. And this is pages 27 to 170 and 173 to 180, according to my thing on here. So to seek approval to the recommendations from the executive contained in the attached report of the Chief Finance Officer and within the appendices listed on the agenda. And this will be introduced by the Finance Officer, by the Cabinet Member, sorry, Councillor Tomlinson. This is an item for decision. Please note there are some proposed amendments set out on pages 181, which were published this morning. Please note, one vote that will cover the budget, the council tax setting and all other issues covered by the report and its appendices will be taken. I'll repeat that. Please note, one vote that will cover the budget, the council tax setting and all other issues covered by the report and its appendix will be taken. I call upon the Cabinet Member, Finance, Property and Assets, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Mayor. It is once again my pleasure and privilege to propose a budget on behalf of this Labour minority administration. I'd like to thank the members of the Labour group for their support and contribution in bringing this exciting document together, and to acknowledge the contribution and scrutiny provided by our colleagues in the Liberal Democrat group. It's traditional at this point to extend my thanks to the finance team for all their work in drawing up this suite of documents and ensuring that we have a well thought out, robust plan to deliver on our priorities in the coming months and years, while still ensuring financial prudence. In this year of all years, I want to extend those thanks to each and every one of our staff who've responded so magnificently to the challenges we have faced as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our staff have shown amazing levels of resilience and flexibility. Oh, I beg your pardon, apparently you can only see my belly. So if you'll excuse me while I take my seat, and then you can see my lovely face as well. Can people at home nod if that's better or worse? I feel like an optician. Better now or worse? Can you see me now? Okay, sorry about that. Where was I? Before I was so rudely interrupted. I was. In this year of all years, I want to extend my thanks to each and every one of our staff who have responded so magnificently to the challenges we have faced as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our staff have shown amazing levels of resilience and flexibility, which has enabled this council to react to support those in our community who have needed it the most. Many of our staff have moved to roles with which they may not have been familiar, often at short notice, and have delivered sterling work to support those most in need. During the first lockdown, we distributed over 3,400 food parcels to the most vulnerable of our residents. We delivered prescriptions and we offered wellbeing support and advice through over 9,000 telephone calls and letters to those most at risk. We continue to work with food banks across the borough to try and protect our residents from the worst effects of the pandemic. Our businesses too have benefited from our staff's local knowledge and willingness to work proactively and flexibly in times of need. Almost 13,000 individual business queries related to COVID-19 have been received by this council, and a total of £24.5 million in business support grant has been distributed to around 2,000 individual businesses across the borough. In the midst of all this COVID-related work, it's important to recognise that the normal work of the council has, by and large, continued. No bin collection routes were cancelled or delayed. Our planning team dealt efficiently with an increasing amount of planning applications. The licensing and environmental health staff continued their important work, which helps keep our residents safe. Parks and playgrounds were maintained and improved. Work began on bringing the historic coach house in Penwitham back into use, and more miles of green linked footpaths were laid, enabling our residents to get out and exercise in pleasant and safe places. Our important support for those most in need has continued through the Revenues and Benefits team and our Housing Department. And new council-owned apartments at Tom Hanson House in Bamber Bridge have been developed and are about to be occupied. In the background, important preparatory work has been done on the flagship projects at the Mackenzie Arms site in Bamber Bridge and at Worden Hall in Leyland, which means those projects are now shovel ready and can progress in the coming year. In a time of crisis, it's been district councils like South Ribble who've proved themselves to be best placed and best equipped to provide the support and advice that our communities have so desperately needed. What a shame then, Mayor, that there are Conservative councillors here who continue to support those who would abolish this council and all that it stands for. Maybe, just maybe, they will reflect on their previous standpoint and now get behind the Labour group in defending this council and the invaluable work it does. I know that the vast majority of councillors have absolute faith in the work of this council and its staff, and the past 12 months have proved that faith to be well placed. So to all of our staff, every single one of you, on behalf of the members of this council, I offer you our profound respect and gratitude for all you've done for our residents over the past 12 months. Thank you all. Turning to the budget itself there, I'm sure that all members will be delighted that I am able to recommend to Council that there is no increase in South Ribble's council tax for the forthcoming year. This administration promised our residents we would do all we could to minimise the burden of taxation, and we are sticking by that promise. Last year's council tax rise of 1.99% was below the then rate of inflation, and coupled with a 17% reduction in the cost of brown bin collection and the abolition of the council tax support scheme, this meant that around 30,000 households are now paying South Ribble less in cash terms than they were under the last years of Tory control of our council. And now, 2 years into this administration, the budget I'm proposing tonight means that those households will continue to pay us less than they did under the Tories. With the Conservatives at County Hall increasing council tax by 18% in the last 4 years, the days of the Tories claiming they are the party of low taxation are well and truly over. The most pleasing thing about the budget I'm proposing tonight, however, is the ambition we are showing both for this council and our residents. Despite a freezing council tax, we are demonstrating an absolute commitment to delivering the best services we can for our residents and to investing in our people and our places to ensure that South Ribble is a great place to live, work and play. With this budget, we are committing to building state-of-the-art council housing in Bamber Bridge and in Penwitham. We are bringing historic buildings at Hurst Grange and Worden Park back into use. We are investing in playgrounds at Bent Lane, Hague Avenue and Moss Side Green in Leyland, at Mounsey Road and the Home in Bamber Bridge, and at Birch Avenue and Margaret Road in Penwitham. There is money for an exciting 3G football pitch development in Bamber Bridge, another £400,000 on our Green Links project, continuing our programme to plant a tree for every resident in our borough, and more money to promote opportunities for our residents to engage in leisure activities. All of these investments in infrastructure will make a significant contribution to delivering our corporate priorities of thriving communities and of good homes, green spaces, healthy places. Another of our other priorities is a fair economy that works for everyone. In addressing this priority, we've already appointed our first Cabinet member with a responsibility for community wealth building. And I've already described how we've been able to support our businesses during the past year. Now, I'm pleased to be able to announce the establishment of a programme to further support local businesses as they emerge into a post-COVID world. The fund will have an initial allocation of £150,000, but I fully expect there will be further monies to support this important work. The work of the Business Recovery Working Group under the chairmanship of Councillor Jay Flannery will be asked to advise Cabinet how this funding can best be used to support our businesses in the coming months. In supporting a post-COVID recovery, we continue to commit to spending significant funds on the regeneration of both Leyland and Penwitham town town centres, and we await with bated breath the result of our bid to the Townsdale Fund, which could bring up to £25 million into Leyland Town Centre. Our corporate priority of thriving communities is addressed too in this budget. Our holiday hunger scheme has already provided over 22,000 meals and will continue to ensure that no South Ribble child need go hungry during the school holidays. We are supporting the Citizens Advice Bureau, enable them to open an office here in the Civic Centre. For the first time, there will be dedicated funding to support positive mental health for our young people. There's funding for the establishment of a credit union, and there are monies to help provide IT equipment for those children in our borough who are digitally excluded. I'm sure that all councillors will agree this is a budget which is one that is exciting, ambitious and full of potential. However, it would be wrong of me not to point out a couple of major challenges which face us in the months and years ahead. For some time now, the government has indicated its determination to change the way it reallocates business rate payments to local councils and to review the structure of local government funding through something it calls the Fair Funding Review. At this stage, it's impossible to say with any degree of certainty what this will mean for this council's funding, or indeed when the much delayed review will actually take place. All we can be certain of is that this change will take place at some time in the fairly imminent future. Accordingly, this year, we've included the potential worst-case scenario of these changes as a part of our predictions for future years. I give Council fair warning that this could mean us losing up to £1.5 million a year by 2023-24, and it is important that we acknowledge that threat in our budgeting. Whatever decision this government is going to make, it represents the greatest risk to how we are funded in the future, and what we need is for any decision to be made with transparency and some expediency. With this change to our finances feeling ever more imminent, it's important I assure members that it's something we've been planning for and saving for. Our business rates retention reserve holds sufficient funds for us to spread the pain of any such change over a number of years, which ought to give us the chance to change how we work in order to face any new circumstances. The other significant challenge we face, along with many other local authorities, is the future of the leisure industry. Our leisure centres have been all but closed for the past 12 months and are likely to be affected for some months to come. The potential losses of our leisure centres over the next 3 years are identified in the report for members to read. Again, these projections are based on conservative estimates with real potential for the outcome to be much healthier than that illustrated. I can assure Council that these potential losses are sustainable in the short term and that plans to bring our leisure service back to profitability in the medium term are in hand. Let us never forget that the previous Conservative administration left this council in ruins. Demoralised staff, our name in national newspapers for all the wrong reasons, our reputation in tatters. Poor leadership, poor governance, poor decision making. Thankfully, the foundations we laid in the first year of this administration have allowed this council to weather the storm of COVID-19. Indeed, we were able to do so whilst offering comfort and support to many of our more vulnerable residents. And in the coming months, we will continue to build on those foundations. We will build a council which is both resilient and flexible. We will build a council which is ambitious both for itself and our residents. We'll build a council which encourages both economic growth and environmental responsibility. We will build a council that stands by those who need us most. We will build a council that listens to its residents and delivers on our promises. And finally, we will build a council of which we can all once again be rightly proud. Mayor, I'm delighted to present this budget to Council tonight, and I'm happy to move all the recommendations within the report, with the exception of the Conservative amendments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. And then is this seconded? I presume this is going to be you, Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Mayor. It's my privilege and pleasure to second the budget, and I reserve the right to speak later on in the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Now then, are there any questions from any members of the council? That's, yes. Yep.
We've had a proposal in a second from.
Yeah. Take the amendment. Right. Can we hear the amendments then, please? So this will be from Councillor Smith. Councillor Bretherton, sorry. Councillor Bretherton?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address Council this evening and to put before you an amendment to the budget. Last year, we proposed some amendments to the budget, a couple of which were taken up during the year. One was a play area for Bellysway in Walton Park. We were grateful that it has now been put into the capital programme, albeit with a smaller amount of £30,000. This has been increased by £30,000 from the Friends of Bellysway Playground Group. The other item was biodiversity, which has now been enlarged to cover more parts of the borough. Whilst we agree with many of the proposals put forward, such as supporting businesses beyond government grants and freezing council tax this year, there are other areas which we disagree with. It is for these reasons we have put forward our Conservative group amendments. We would like to see progression in supporting young business people and better investment in green spaces and healthy places. We do not intend to put before you a full budget, as we feel that it would have caused an unnecessary amount of work for the officers with no realistic chance of it succeeding. But we do have a few amendments that we feel would be of help to our residents and provide better value for money. This last pandemic year has been very difficult for our residents. Many have faced an uncertain future, and some have struggled financially. Many of our businesses have struggled to maintain an existence, and they, together with their employees, have suffered from reduced income. We acknowledge that during the last year, the Council received numerous funding streams from our colleagues in government to support local businesses. An astonishing £32.3 million has been made available through grants to our businesses in South Ribble alone. This amount of emergency support from our government in support of local businesses is unprecedented. Nevertheless, a younger generation has faced an uncertain future. Career prospects have dwindled. Many of our school leavers and those looking for employment after college or university have found an environment where businesses are reluctant to recruit in these COVID-related uncertain times. We propose to offer a lifeline to our enterprising 18 to 25-year-olds by supporting a £150,000 scheme where they can apply for a grant to provide start-up capital to support new businesses. Great Britain is a nation of aspiring entrepreneurs, with 1 in 7 British workers aiming to become self-employed. One company is formed every minute in the UK. Government statistics show that there were 5.8 million small businesses at the start of 2019, and the numbers have grown every year since the year 2000. Small businesses will drive our economic recovery post-lockdown, and our proposed scheme will help our young entrepreneurs rebuild our local economy. They will be given a grant of £5,000 to help with rent, advertising and related start-up costs. We thought this would tie in nicely with the renovation of the ticket office in Leyland to be used as a pop-up outlet. There is already an amount of £150,000 in the budget for wealth creation. This could be utilised, therefore, not requiring any extra budget provision. In our proposed amendment to last year's 2019-20 capital programme, we referred to the investment strategy, and in particular the £4.2 million investment reserve set aside to generate income. As Conservatives, we had a vision where capital could be invested locally to benefit both the lives of our residents and the environment they live in. For those members that might not remember this part of last year's amendment, let me refresh your memories and read to you an extract from my speech. Given the relatively low values of Band A residential properties in the borough and the likelihood of modest capital growth over the medium to long term, we favour this sector over certain types of commercial properties, for example, retail units. Bringing poor housing stock back to high quality homes for our residents, to us, is a better use of the capital available to invest. Needless to say, I am sure members will agree that residential property has been a better investment over the past year than the battered retail and office sectors. Following on from this theme of last year, we propose that £2 million is invested in rundown properties with the purpose of embarking on a project of high quality renovation or refurbishment. These modernised and well insulated homes will improve the housing stock within South Ribble, provide local jobs and make available affordable homes to rent for local residents. Over the long term, this investment in residential property should provide reasonable income and capital growth, providing some protection from the elements of inflation. It's interesting to know that there were 766 properties in the borough identified as being empty for more than 6 months. This again can be funded from the £2 million already in the budget for social housing. We stick to a similar theme as last year in proposing further investment in green spaces and healthy places. We would like to see the continuation of the long-term Central Parks master plan and propose £100,000 to work towards these goals. Central Parks is the green lungs of our borough, and we would not like to see this master plan relegated to a lower priority. This fund to be focused on environmental courses for people with mental health issues, forest school activities for children, further research-based support for native bees, including managed ground-based and tree hives, as well as improved footpaths, themed walks and circuits. Further improving air quality around the borough, we propose a £125,000 investment in biodiversity, living walls and air purifying plants. Areas which would bring an immediate benefit from our Conservative group policy of cleaner air is through a sustainable programme of living walls and air purifying plants in areas such as Golden Hill Lane, Tardygate, Turpin Green Lane, Station Road in Bamber Bridge and Victoria Road in Walton Dale. This again can be funded from the proposed budget, as you have already put £250,000 to support the green agenda. Lancashire County Council has recently sourced 1,800 laptops as part of a £1 million support package designed to help those pupils who have been shut out of effective homeschooling because of a lack of access to the necessary devices. This council has also committed £20,000 for disadvantaged children in specifically focused wards of Bamber Bridge, Kingsfold in Penwitham and the Broadfield and Wade Hall areas of Leyland. The Conservative group would like to go further and reach out to disadvantaged children in all wards across South Ribble. We propose an extra £30,000, making £50,000 investment in the education of those disadvantaged children wherever they live in South Ribble. This could be funded from the COVID grants from government not yet allocated. We would also like to propose a freeze on car parking charges for 3 months from when the lockdown is lifted. This would cost approximately £13,300 per month or £40,000 over the 3-year period, and again could be funded out of government grants. Members will recall that in last year's proposed amendment to the budget, the Conservative group highlighted the ongoing plight of flooding issues at Longton Park suffered by local residents. This matter has not been resolved, and again we propose a sum of £100,000 in order to carry out this long overdue programme of full drainage works. These works can be funded through external funding sources, including Section 106 agreements. The new Longton regeneration project is shown in the capital programme with a £75,000 allocation from Section 106 monies. We propose that this project is funded from capital, as was originally proposed in the 2019-20 budget, with a top-up from Section 106 monies if necessary. I think you will agree that these amendments are modest. We have worked with our statutory officers and we would like to thank them for all of their help and assistance in delivering a balanced budget. Our amendments will still maintain a balanced budget which will not have negative implications for the revenue budget. I commend to the Council the amended proposals, which we are hopeful will gain the support of all members. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bretherton. And is that seconded? Is that seconded?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
I reserve the right to speak later. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. And now we're on to questions from the council. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Now then, are there any questions? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to speak against this amendment, mainly because as to when we received it. I mean, one of the first things that the new administration did post-May 2019 was actually establish a scrutiny budget working group. And it wasn't that long ago, a couple of meetings ago, that Councillor Greene was bemoaning the fact that this was a small group of 5 or so members, and the budget should come before the whole scrutiny committee. Well, it appears that Councillor Greene only wants budgets to come before scrutiny if it's budgets proposed by the administration and not proposals that are coming from the Conservative group. Why now? If you've had the best part of 12 months, and I accept that you say that the drainage issues at Longton were proposed last year, but for most of this, you've had 12 months to put this forward. You could have brought this in front of scrutiny. We could have scrutinised your proposals, seriously examined them, because scrutiny is not just about asking questions to potentially trip people up. It's about developing policy and assisting the policy making of the council. There may well be some good proposals here, but how do we know? We got these first thing this morning. We've had no chance to examine them or scrutinise them to decide whether they're good, bad or indifferent. So on that basis alone, I fail to see how we can accept this tonight when there's been so little scrutiny, well, no scrutiny whatsoever, of what's in the document. And I would take issue with some of the proposals that are coming forward as well. I mean, the whole amount of the £150,000 reserve for community wealth building now be allocated to start-ups for 18 to 25-year-olds at the expense of everybody else in the borough. And the statement that set aside to develop affordable homes be removed. Just think on that for a while. Set aside developing affordable homes. I think the sheer mention of council housing to the Conservatives makes it look as if they're either sucking lemons or chewing a wasp. It's so abhorrent to them. And then all of a sudden the light has come on. We should be developing private property and renovating private properties that have fallen into disrepair, because that's much better than investing in commercial premises. This is the same Conservative group that 2 years ago were going to invest money in commercial premises in Southampton. But all of a sudden, that is not advisable, and we should be taking on falling apart private rent sector housing. It really does beg a belief. I mean, some of their proposals for the green agenda may well be commendable, but why haven't these been fed in to the working groups that we have, to the climate change emergency group that we have, and perhaps we could have worked them up and brought them forward and included them in a budget? No, it arrives on the day of the council meeting. Again, commendable homeschooling initiative, but you've had every opportunity to raise this at scrutiny. You've had every opportunity at the Cabinet, and it appears today within an amendment. And let's not forget this great idea to now freeze car parking charges for 3 months. This is the group that voted against having a free hour on all our car parks when we voted through the car parking review. So I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I really cannot accept this amendment. It's too little, too late. It's not had any scrutiny, and I would urge members to reject it.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Thank you. Mary Greene. Councillor Greene, Mary Greene.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for having given the opportunity to speak this evening. First of all, I've listened with interest to the budget this evening, referencing the council tax freeze, which I approve, but also I am pleased to see that my requests for improvements...
Excuse me, Councillor Greene, we are now discussing the amendments, not the budget.
Right, okay, well, I'll be able to come back with that.
Yes, you can come back later on with that.
Well, can I carry on with the other point then, please?
Is that about the amendments?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, okay, thank you, Councillor Greene.
Right. The scheme on the tablets proposed by South Ribble is very pleasing, as it will assist children in potential deprived areas to have access to the tablets needed to further their education, which at the moment is being affected by COVID. I must, though, applaud our Conservative amendment to increase the amount of funding to 50,000, as this will extend the number of tablets by approximately 225 more to other areas of the borough. These areas have been excluded from this scheme, for instance, Moss Side and Midge Hall. In my ward, there are definite pockets of deprivation which are not included in this scheme. The children in my ward and their families are suffering with their education. Notwithstanding, of course, as well, as the children return to school, the relevant schools and pupils will benefit by these extra tablets that would be drawn back into the school to assist pupils there at that point. Thank you, and I would like, if possible, for that to be considered, please, during the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greene. Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I want to say a thank you again to all the staff for all their outstanding work during these unprecedented times. And I wish to speak in support of some items on the amendment. The first one, I want to support the amendment to freeze car parking charges for 3 months after the COVID lockdown restrictions are relaxed. By freezing the charges, residents will be encouraged to park and stay for longer and use local businesses in the areas where there are car parking charges imposed. We need to support local businesses, and many of which has been closed for a long period of time, to recover in the months moving forward, but subject to the 3-hour parking limit being enforced to stop all-day parking and using the long-stay car parks, especially in Tardygate in my ward, as a park and ride facility. I also fully support the amendment to include the 150,000 to create a local fund to support the 18 to 25-year-olds wanting to be local entrepreneurs, to help them set up their own businesses in South Ribble. The latest unemployment figures show that 59% of this age group of 18 to 25 are unemployed at the moment. So we should be providing support for our residents in this age group, as they're the future of this borough. I also support the amount of 125,000 to develop the green initiative within the borough, such as the Living Walls, Biodiversity Projects and the purifying plants. Plants, hedges and trees can help reduce the particulate matter as a barrier between the source of pollution from traffic, and residents would benefit in a positive effect on improving the air quality around the planting of suitable trees, plants and hedges around the borough. Extensive studies by Lancaster University have shown that trees such as silver birch, yew and elder, and evergreen trees such as cypress and conifers are best at capturing particles, and the evergreens work all the year round, but it has to be the right tree for the job. With the removal of so many hedgerows due to the building of large residential developments, especially in my area, and the impact that they have in air quality due to the increased volume of traffic, it is now extremely important to replace hedges and plant new ones in areas where our air quality has shown to be a problem, such as said at Councillor Bretherton's speech. Hedges such as privet, hawthorn, bay, laurel and holly need to be planted to capture and disperse the harmful particulates from vehicle fumes and to make the borough borough's air cleaner for everyone. Thank you for listening tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. And Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say it's good to see everyone who's on camera. First of all, I must say I can't support the amendment as it is, purely because the lack of time and preparation that we would have had to be able to look at it properly. And if we're after for any clarification, which some members do ask for, it can't be given. I do look at the environmental side. Obviously, I'm the lead for the environment or the climate change and the Climate Emergency Committee, and I do welcome the interests in improving that, and I do welcome, and we would welcome as a committee, as a number of you are on that committee, your submissions to that. We've had submissions from the Lib Dems, and we'll be going through that, and I thank them for that advance notice as well before the committee. But some of the projects that you've mentioned in there are very technically difficult to do. As we are, and it's a little bit unfortunate that they're mentioned in the budget, because we could have looked at them at the Climate Emergency Committee, and we could have looked at how we can do them there. So as it is, I can't support the amendment, and but I would welcome interaction from more of you with the Climate Emergency Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wants? Is there anybody else? Sorry, Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking in support of the amendment. I fully agree with the freezing of the council tax, but I'm very surprised that the lifeline amendments for 18 to 25-year-olds and more affordable homes for our residents in need of housing are not being considered. I look forward to the Labour Party implementing them, as they usually do after the event, but I cannot support it all in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. Councillor Greene, Michael Greene.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you for Councillor Tomlinson's speech. I'll comment on that later in accordance with your advice to us. But turning to the amendment, can I thank Councillor Breverton for putting forward an excellent amendment this evening, which deals with a number of the issues which are being faced by the residents of South Hibble, be they very young residents up to relatively older residents. So I think it's an excellent amendment and one which I will be supporting. Turning to some of the points in that, I'm quite staggered by the comments by Councillor Howarth and Councillor Martin regarding the notice. As experienced councillors, if they look at the council procedure rules, they will note that an amendment requires 0 amount of notice. And it is normal procedure for groups to put forward amendments without giving any notice, as Councillor Howarth will be well aware. Having said that, our group chose to put forward this amendment to give advance notice, several hours of advance notice. I understand it was submitted yesterday, to allow all councillors to consider it on the basis that these were relatively minor amendments, some of them, and things which we thought that the council would be willing to accept for the good of the residents of South Hibble. Alas, that would appear that is not the case this evening, and I'm sorry to see that, but I would hope that the administration may take them on board and implement them in the future. Turning to specific points, so Councillor Tomlinson in his speech made the point about wanting to make the council a council which listens to residents.
We're talking about the amendments, not the budget at the minute, Councillor Greene.
Absolutely. So, I won't stray on to the budget. It was just a point that Councillor Tomlinson made, which is of relevance.
All right. OK, I'll let you have it this once.
Thank you. In terms of listening to the residents, if you turn to Appendix A, the top priority for the residents of South Hibble is to support businesses to get back on their feet after the COVID-19 pandemic. And that touches on a couple of the points contained within Councillor Brereton's amendment this evening. So first of all, the fund for young entrepreneurs, providing a fund for 18 to 25-year-olds to set up their businesses and drive forward the economy in South Hibble in the years to come, creating employment for themselves, their peers, and many residents, hopefully hundreds and possibly thousands in the years to come. So an excellent initiative. Car parking charges. Now, far be it from us raising this today, we submitted our views regarding car parking charges a number of months ago when the policy was reviewed. And we're just firming this up now and setting out the amount of funding that may be required to cover the implementation of zero car parking charges for up to 3 hours for a certain period of time, as indicated 3 months after the lockdown rules change. Furthermore, this can be funded from the grants which have been allocated to the council by the government and which have not been allocated by the council fully up to this point. I further support, Madam Mayor, the green initiatives. I think these are excellent examples. The living walls, which is something which we brought up in last year's budget. The projects for biodiversity, again, building on initiatives that we've put forward previously, and Councillor Brereton in particular has. And the plants, which there's a lot of evidence now to show that they can have a dramatic impact upon purifying the air in parts of the borough where air quality is an issue. I think I would recommend that councillors take that on board moving forward. And finally, Madam Mayor, the point I wish to make is about the tablets for our children. I would applaud the council for implementing a 20,000 scheme to buy tablets, in addition to the major schemes brought forward by the government and by the county council. But that 20,000 scheme has helped to make a local difference, but unfortunately only in certain targeted areas. And there are, sadly, children right across South Hibble in different wards who suffer from digital exclusion. And obviously during the times of COVID, that has had an impact upon their education. And this is an opportunity for us to make that difference now. And even when the schools return to normal, which will probably be soon, as we know, it will be a massive advantage to those particular children and their schools. So I think the idea to increase that fund to £50,000 would allow us to buy 200, 225, something like that, tablets, which will make a massive impact in various wards, including, for instance, in my ward, in Moss Side, the wards in Farrington, the wards in Lostercole, and wards right across South Hibble. Even in some of the most affluent areas, I can guarantee there will be children that suffer from digital exclusion. And it should be about reaching out to all of them and giving those children the life chances to maximise their education, maximise their potential career, and maximise in turn the contribution that they will make to South Hibble and to society as a whole. So I would like to wholeheartedly support this amendment this evening and urge colleagues to do likewise. Thank you for your time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greene. Sorry? Who? Councillor Lomax?
Thank you, Lady Mayor. I won't be voting for the amendment because I feel it would take us down the route of a homes under the hammer administration, where it would be more about profit and what we could get for rent rather than real social value. With regard to the living walls, the Lostercole, Bamber Bridge and Whatley have already started putting up a living wall in Lostercole. We will keep you all informed. We think it's the right thing to do. And I would ask all hubs to look at it where needed. I will be voting against the amendment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wharton-Hardman.
Good evening. Whilst I will be abstaining against this amendment this evening, as I don't agree with all of it, I would like to comment on the additional funds which have been proposed for the digital tablets for young people. So within my ward of Farrington East, there is quite a large amount of disadvantaged people, and I have been contacted by a number of residents since the council voted through the additional funding, in particular for certain wards, and we have been omitted. So it has caused quite a bit of upset within my ward. So whilst I agree with that addition, I would ask council to possibly look at this moving forward, not in this budget, but moving forward, to look to see if they can support additional funding for extra wards. As Farrington Parish Council have put forward £5,000 towards our ward, towards Farrington, that still isn't going to cover the additional funding required. So I would ask council to take that on board and look at that after the budget meeting to see if they can support extra funding for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on a point of order, actually, I'd like to just clarify, given Councillor Bretherton's enthusiasm for further funding for residential properties, is it not right that he should be declaring himself as a property company owner and a private landlord? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
I can't see that as being a pecuniary interest in this matter, Councillor Turner. I can't see it has a direct impact on the proposal has a direct impact on his personal financial position.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Is it Councillor Foster, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I really do think the Conservative group is exceptionally confused on what they are proposing here, and I'm just briefly going to kindly ask Councillor Bretherton a few questions actually and point out a few inaccuracies and errors in what he's stating. I'm then going to ask the Council to bring this debate to an end, and after Councillor Tomlinson has spoken, and let's vote on it so we can get to the substantive issue here, because that there is what brings our community through COVID and our businesses through COVID, not that piece of paper. Councillor Bretherton stated that his amendments to the last budget were accepted by the council regarding Bellis Park and biodiversity. That is fundamentally untrue. They were already part of the capital programme. And again, I would hope if Councillor Bretherton is struggling to understand the difference between an amendment and what's contained within the capital programme, he please speaks to us and we'll talk him through that. To receive this amendment this morning, after the Conservative group has not added to any of the consultation surrounding the budget, is most disappointing, because if Councillor Bretherton, and I'd ask him has he reached out and has he spoken to my colleague, Councillor Tomlinson, about this? Have you approached the Cabinet about this and asked us over the last 3 to 6 months to consider some of these amendments, like many other councillors have? I then asked Councillor Bretherton just to give some clarity as well on some of the proposals that he's putting forward, because what is pleasing, it seems at least it's getting a better debate this tonight than it did 2 or 3 days ago when they came up with this at the Conservative group meeting. Firstly, does he understand, Councillor Bretherton, that the community wealth building policy has been adopted as part of the corporate plan and by the council, and the investment in that community wealth building corporate plan has been approved and is in the budget now to be reconfirmed? And is he also not aware that we have the apprentice factory here at South Ribble, funded by South Ribble and Partners, and part of the work that they do is to support the 18 to 25-year-olds. They do that already. And again, if you'd spoken to us about that, or spoken to the officers about that, we could have confirmed that. I then move on to this whole issue about bringing private slums, basically, in the private sector and using them for council housing. We don't do that. We build, our corporate policy is to build homes that are energy efficient and that are new and that are spacious, where people deserve and families deserve to live. We're not there here to support the private sector and buy out houses within the borough that are in disrepair. And again, I'd ask him, has he spoken to Councillor Bill Evans, who deals with the housing policy, because we have a clear housing policy in place within the council that deals with this. I then ask you just to explain more, please, this green agenda, additional monies that you are proposing. Is he aware, clearly has been mentioned, that the council already has a climate change emergency task group, and that the green agenda is one of the top priorities within the new corporate plan, and there's a raft of revenue budget already allocated to delivering this. Are you not aware, Councillor Bretherton, that we're already in the process of delivering a living wall in Lostock Hall? I thought you would be, because you're a member of the community hub, that we've been discussing it and debating it, and we're already on with that, you know. Biodiversity projects and air purifying plants, again, where's the detail? Again, this should be feeding into the Councillor Keith Martin's working group, and then we can look at it and it forms part of a coherent plan across the borough. Again, where's the Central Parks Master Plan, £100,000? That's not even mentioned in your paper. It's a confusing paper. It isn't clear. It isn't clear where the money's coming from. It isn't clear how the money's been allocated. I then look at the Conservative group proposals for the laptops for the kids and the digital inclusion. And I'd remind Captain Hindsight that we have only just voted this through as an emergency decision for this council. I'd also urge Councillor Bretherton to speak to council officers and members of the cabinet about this, because then you would fully understand that this isn't just South Ribble. This is the government, this is Lancashire County Council, this is South Ribble, this is the schools themselves, and even partners like BAE Systems, who are all working together to deliver these facilities and these laptops, and also all the data that goes with it, because it's not just about the provision of the hardware, it's the data as well. We are working together with them. It is totally and utterly incorrect to say that there are certain boroughs within this council that have been excluded from this programme. That is not true. We are working together as one. As one. There is much more resource available today for the kids than there was 4 to 6 weeks ago when we bought the iPads and the other things that we sent out. Car parking. You voted against the provision of free car parking across the borough some 2 or 3 months ago. Your proposals within your amendments are also desperately confusing, because you propose at the top to freeze car parking charges for 3 months, but then state further down that that's by just creating a 3-hour limit and there'll still be charges on other car parks around the borough. Where is the detail that substantiate this? How have you possibly costed this, Councillor Bretherton, when even in your own statement and your own paragraph confuses itself? You also, please, Councillor Bretherton, need to come in and speak to us and understand fully the car parking policy and the consultation that we've done. Because the experts have told us that to increase footfall, you need around an hour's free parking. You couldn't shop for 3 hours on Huff Lane. You go to 1 or 2 shops on Huff Lane and it takes about 45 minutes to do your shopping. What we are trying to encourage is footfall. And so the advice we were given by the experts was an hour's free parking was more than sufficient. It encourages more footfall. Again, you can't support this because it's confused. And then we come to Longton at the end, Mayor. Again, I would ask Councillor Bretherton to ask his leader of his group, who's a Longton councillor, what they've done and what the Western Parishes Community Hub has done in the last 12 months to try and sort these issues out that they want capital funding for. Why are these projects not within the Community Hub's priorities? Why are they not knocking on the door of the Cabinet to deliver these projects? They're nowhere to be seen. The other problem that the Conservative group need to be aware of is some of the schemes on the Longton improvements are highway schemes. And as Councillor Greene knows, and perhaps Councillor Greene can talk to you about this, we're not the statutory highway authority. Any improvements to the highways must be done through Lancashire County Council. So I'm more disappointed, Councillor Bretherton, than anything else with the amendments, because I've sat here for the past 6 months urging all councillors to feed into the budget process. All councillors to feed into the budget process, and then we would adopt, wherever possible, the ideas that were brought forward. Unfortunately, not one member of the Conservative group brought any proposals to my colleagues or I during the last 6 months, apart from the email that landed this morning that we read. I'm therefore going to suggest we vote against this amendment because it's ill-judged, it's not been thought through properly, Mr Mayor, and what needs to happen now is we need to get onto the substantive budget as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I do have a request from Councillor Margaret Smith. Is that? Do you want to speak first? So Councillor Tomlinson first, and then Councillor Margaret Smith.
I know that Councillor, thank you, Mayor. I know that Councillor Smith reserved the right to speak. So as seconder, I'll allow her to go after me. I'm sure she'll be grateful. As the proposer of the original budget, I am not surprisingly going to urge members to vote against the amendment, mainly for the reasons that Councillor Howarth spoke to earlier about timeliness. So I won't rehash that debate. But what a strange collection of comments we've had. The benefits of privet versus beech versus ash in the budget. Let's not forget, this is the administration that brought forward a plan to plant a tree for every resident in this borough in this administration, and we're well on with doing that, and we'll continue to do that. We've got some sites lined up, and we will continue to do that. And if you want to have the debate about privet versus ash versus beech, then I'm sure we'll be happy to listen. But quite why they're brought up in a budget, I do not know. Similarly, I'm not sure where this throwaway remark about not wanting to see Central Parks relegated in our priorities has come from, because there is no speaking of relegating Central Parks. As was said, it's the green lungs in the centre of the borough, and we support it just as much as the previous administration. So those fears ought to be put to bed immediately. The amendment about funding 18 to 25-year-old entrepreneurs. We'll be doing that because the money that we've set aside doesn't discriminate on age. So if you're an entrepreneur, 18 to 25, and you think you can convince Councillor J Flannery you've got a project that needs supporting with post-COVID money, good for you, and you will get it from this administration. If we did what you propose in your amendment, we'd be saying to somebody aged 24 who wanted to do a company doing some coding in his back bedroom, yes, we might support you. But if someone was 26 and wanted to set up a manufacturing company in one of our units and employ 10 men, paying the living wage, taking on apprenticeships, we'd have to say to them, no, sorry, we can't help you because we've decided we'll only give it to 18 to 25-year-olds. I'm sorry, it's economically illiterate, and coming from a Conservative group, that's absolutely shocking. On the laptops, can I say, I don't know whether it is deliberate misinformation or whether it's people just not understanding how we are doing this. This is not and never has been ward specific. So if you're telling people on Moss Side we are discriminating against pupils on Moss Side, that is simply not true. What we are doing is talking to the schools where the most free school meals are given out, because we know that's where the need is. Now, those children could be coming from any surrounding wards, and in fact, we all know, don't we, that the travel to school distance for many children can be a mile and a half, or even further. So this is not ward specific, and it was only there as a top up. As you've heard, there's a government scheme to get these laptops out. The county council, God bless them, have done a brilliant job of putting £1 million to help Lancashire school children. We've heard aerospace, as Councillor Foster said, and lots of other businesses coming forward to say we want to help to make sure children aren't digitally excluded. So this extra 20,000 is to fill the gaps. And I would ask, why 50,000? Where's the evidence that that is the right amount of money? Why not 40,000? Why not 75,000? And I'm kind of thinking that 50,000 was the figure that the Conservative group meeting thought would be a wheeze when they met last Saturday. It's been put forward with no evidence to back it up, and so we shouldn't support it. And then finally, I would say that Councillor Greene is quite right. Look at the Constitution. Amendments do not require notice. But I would say amendments to the budget do require notice if they wish to be taken seriously. Please vote against this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Margaret Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. My goodness me, what a controversy over some, what we thought, quite modest amendments being put to the budget. There's been quite a few comments made. One particular that Councillor Howarth has made, which is quite strange that he actually refers to investment in Southampton. That was never, ever going anywhere, as he well knows. It was something that was given to us as a possibility, and it was discounted immediately. As quickly as the due diligence was done, it was never on the cards. And why you keep referring to it, I really am not quite sure. As regards housing, and the fact that Councillor Foster, with comments about slums, we are going to put people in slums. I have never heard anything so ridiculous in my life. There are houses around in all wards. We have one just around the corner from us, which is nowhere near a slum, but is a house that has been derelict for quite a number of years and could quite easily be brought up into a habitable condition with work done on it. It would then be an investment for the council, and people could rent that, and the ongoing rental, affordable, could be very well put towards people having a good home to live in. So the very idea that we would be buying houses up in areas, I didn't realise that we had any slums in South Ribble, actually. I think it's quite a deplorable word that Councillor Foster has used about parts of South Ribble. Maybe he will tell us where these slums are. But it was an idea that we had many years ago, and the idea was, when we were first going down the route to the Mackenzie Arms, that we would actually put in affordable housing for people to rent, and it would be an investment for the council and an income generation. And that is actually the basis of it. As regards the laptops, there's been a lot of talk about laptops. I mentioned this some months ago to the Chief Executive, that I thought that we had a number of laptops within South Ribble that had been given back because we've all got new ones, and could we possibly have them refurbished and put out to the schools? And quite rightly, he said no, it was far too costly to do something like that, but there was a scheme going forward. So it's not something that we have just suddenly thought about. And why 30,000? Well, why not? Why did you home in on 20,000? I don't know. But an extra money surely must be beneficial to anyone who needs a laptop in this time. And if we can do something to help, I think that is an exceptionally good thing to do. There's been quite a lot of talk about these purifying plants that have actually now suddenly coming to the fore. It's only recently, actually, that the study that has been taken through the universities has actually come into the public domain. And it's quite an interesting study that a lot of plants that we take for granted in the normal way of things, that are in gardens and hedgerows, actually have a very big beneficial advantage to getting rid of the pollutants, and can be much more effective than planting trees, because trees take such a long time to actually do their work, where these plants actually work an awful lot faster. So on that basis, really, they are things that we would think that would be a good idea to put forward. And yes, we have brought it up at the budget, and why not? These are the times when you do put forward initiatives. And I think they are good initiatives. And the car parking, I think we brought it up some months ago that we would actually like to see free car parking once the lockdown has finished for an initial 3 months. And I think it's a good idea, and we should look at it very carefully. We need to regenerate what is going on in our high streets. We need to do everything we possibly can to help. And I think this initiative of 18 to 25-year-olds is an excellent one. I really do. The idea that we could actually give people a chance and get a foot on the ladder to actually get their businesses off the ground, I think would be a wonderful thing. And I'm sure that there are ways around all things about, as regards, as Councillor Tomlinson says, about if somebody's 26. I'm sure there are thoughts that can be put forward that could use a different initiative for that. So all in all, I think there's been an awful lot of good things that have come out of this amendment. And I'm sorry that you feel that you won't be able to work with us on these. But I would, before I finish, I would like to thank the officers for helping us out. They have been very good and doing the work for us and helping us out. I would also like to thank all the members of the, all our officers that have worked extremely hard during this COVID pandemic, and the way that they have actually adapted to what they have, their normal way of things. And I also think it's worth mentioning the grants that the government has given to this council. It has been mentioned about the 33 million that has actually gone in government grants to businesses. I know 24 million of that has already been distributed, and 7.7 million is committed. And I would thank the members and officers of the hard-working Business Recovery Programme Committee, who I know have worked very, very hard and taken this on board and worked extremely diligently throughout this time. Also, we've received other grants, 1.5 million to help the council's expenditure.
I'm sorry, Margaret, you're well over your time.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got to the stage where I got to looking at my papers and I hadn't realised I wanted to say about these government grants. But I'm sorry if I've just rambled over, Mayor. Thank you for reminding me. I will close on the basis that I would like people, obviously, to vote for it, but I don't think I'm going to get very far this evening. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Councillor Smith. No, it's back to Councillor Bretherton. Councillor Bretherton, can you sum up, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We thought our modest amendments were excellent, and they benefit residents in many ways. I probably can't add much more to what Councillor Smith has already said. I think she's answered quite a few of the questions. I'd just like to bring up a few points. Councillor Howarth mentioned about the investment in property. We are proposing affordable homes, and the homes that we're suggesting are it's buying rundown properties. That's properties that have been neglected over a number of years for whatever reason, and bringing the properties back up to a very high standard. once those properties have been brought up to a very high standard in the local community, they will be offered for rent to local families or couples, and they could rent those properties at affordable rents. Nobody's saying anything about looking at this as like a big profit-making thing. This is to help residents in the borough. It's taking away eyesore properties that are run down, neglected. They might need central heating systems. They might need insulating to building regulations. They might need new bathrooms, kitchens. It's bringing them up to a high quality standard. In some ways, that might be better than building from new. We're all for wealth creation and offering highly expensive council homes to residents to buy after 3 years under the right to buy scheme is an excellent idea. That is genuine wealth creation. That's building from brand new, high quality properties and then flogging them at a 30% discount 3 years later. That is wealth creation for individuals, but unfortunately that might not leave houses available for people to rent in the future. Our way of doing things, what we're suggesting, is we're keeping hold of these properties. We're doing the same thing effectively, but we're keeping hold of them for the longer term, and at some point they could be sold if the council decides to. So I think it is an excellent idea from a longer term perspective. And other points mentioned, the central parks. As you know, I'm a relatively new councillor, but I understand the Central Parks initiative has been, the plan has been with the council for a long time. This isn't something new that we're proposing, it's something there, the plan's already there. What we're saying is let's carry on with the plan and put some more money into it. The ideas that were suggested have been developed over many years and they're already waiting to go, but we'd just like to further them and get on with them. The living walls, Councillor Foster, yes, I am aware of the living walls. We did suggest them in our budget last year, and we're very thankful that one has proposals come forward to one of the areas that we mentioned at Tardy Gates, and yes, I have been involved with discussions about that. So yes, I am aware of it. About the living walls, because as I say, it was our idea to begin with. But what we're suggesting is we go further. We roll it out across the borough, especially into the areas that we proposed last year, and we're proposing them this year again. The drainage at Longton Park, we proposed it last year. The council have known about it. It was in the capital programme, I believe. It's been changed for section 106 monies for the Longton regeneration scheme, but we want to take that back into the capital programme. It would be nice to be invited in future for cabinet discussions when you're discussing these things. I'm quite happy to advise you or sit in on the cabinet meetings if that's what you like, but I haven't been invited to attend them, so I wasn't sure what the cabinets have been discussing in the past. You've got about 10 seconds, Councillor Bretherton, to wind up. Yeah, we've come up with some fantastic ideas, and we'd strongly urge members to vote for the amendment. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Right, everybody, we're going to go to the vote on the amendments.
Thank you, members. Yes, we're moving to the vote on the amendments. These are the amendments to the substantive budget papers, and they're at agenda item 8.0. This will be a recorded vote. I'll read each councillor's name out in turn. If the councillor can indicate for, against or abstention. So confirm this is a vote on the amendment. Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Alty.
Against.
Councillor Bell.
Against.
Councillor Blow. Councillor Blow, for or against the amendment?
I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'll speak up. Sorry, Councillor Blow, are you for or against the amendment?
Against. Right. Against. Yeah.
Okay, against, thank you. Councillor Bretherton.
For.
Councillor Bilinski-Gelder.
Against.
Councillor Campbell.
For.
Councillor Chisholm.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Colton.
For.
Councillor Donoghue.
Against.
Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Flannery.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Against.
Councillor Foster.
Against.
Councillor Mary Greene.
For.
Councillor Michael Greene.
For.
Councillor Hancock.
Against.
Councillor Hesketh.
For.
Councillor Higgins. Councillor Howarth.
Against.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hughes, you're on, but you are muted. Are you for or against?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Susan Jones.
Against.
Councillor Lomax.
Against.
Councillor Marsh.
For.
Councillor Martin.
Against.
Councillor Amelia.
Against.
Councillor Moon.
For.
Councillor Mort.
For.
Councillor Mullineaux.
For.
Councillor Ogilvie.
For.
Councillor Rainsbury.
For.
Councillor Sharples.
Against.
Councillor Shaw.
Against.
Councillor Margaret Smith.
For.
Councillor Phil Smith.
For. For.
Councillor Suthers.
Councillor Suthers. For.
Sorry, councillors, can you mute
Councillors,
your
can you mute
microphone if you're not voting, please? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thirlborn.
Councillor Thirlborn. For. For.
Four. Thank you. Councillor Titherington.
Against.
Councillor Caleb Tomlinson.
Yeah, against.
Councillor Matthew Tomlinson.
Against.
Councillor Trafford.
Against.
Councillor Turner.
Against.
Councillor Walton.
For.
Councillor Watkinson.
Against.
Councillor Watson.
For.
Councillor Wharton-Hardman.
Abstain.
Councillor Wooldridge.
Against.
And Councillor Yates.
For.
Thank you. The proposed amendments, the motion has been lost. 22 for, 26 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you. We now go back to the substantive, which is the budget proposal that was proposed by Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Now then, we go to debate this now. So that, yes. So, Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now that we've moved to the substantive, I would like to support the budget as proposed. This is a joint budget under the confidence and supply arrangement that will continue to deliver an agreed programme of both the Labour and Liberal Democrat aims and commitments we made to the public. And I thank Councillor Foster and Tomlinson for the way in which frank and open discussions have taken place with the Labour group to arrive at it. It was suggested at the last full council meeting that I'd sold my soul to the Labour group. But can I say that rather than selling my soul in last year's budget, we delivered on our commitment to reduce the green waste charges imposed by the last administration, despite their promises never to do so. We delivered on our commitment to abolish the replacement bin charges for ageing and damaged bins imposed by the last administration. We're delivering on the Penwitham District Centre plan, with bids now being assessed for its design and delivery, that was shelved by the last administration, and there are further plans still to come forward. We're delivering on our commitment to greater public participation and local decision making through community hubs while discussions are underway to parish the whole borough. This year, we're delivering on our commitment to a programme of playground refurbishment scrapped by the last administration. The budget will deliver the long-awaited work to one of our important heritage sites at St Mary's Churchyard, ignored by the last administration. It will provide more dog bins where needed, and it will provide greater provision to tackle school holiday hunger in the face of the callous vote against food vouchers by our Conservative members of Parliament. And it will be done in a spirit of cooperation and joint working against a backdrop of the legacy issues that are now being addressed, not least of all our leisure services, and at no increasing cost this year to the council taxpayer. Mr. Mayor, my soul has been saved, and I commend this budget to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. He never fails to amuse me, doesn't Councillor Howard? Thank you, Councillor Howard. Got anybody else? Councillor Titherington.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to express my support for this budget. I believe that Councillor Tomlinson needs to be congratulated, together with his team of officers, for all the hard work that has gone into its formulation. Likewise, the clear, concise and professional way in which he has presented it this evening is also worthy of note and merit. I wholeheartedly support this budget because I see it as a people's budget, put together by people, for people. We know the impact that the pandemic has had on our communities. For some households, the social and financial effect has been devastating. And I join with others in recognising the magnificent job our key workers have done in probably the biggest crisis that many of us have known in our lifetimes. The Council's response has been commendable, and it's right to acknowledge the flexibility and agility of our officers. And with the emergence of exceptional individuals and groups, we have seen the true strength of our community and the best in humanity. Mayor, if your health and living standards are under attack, or your business is failing due to circumstances beyond your control, the Council's empathy is not enough. In tough times, people need to know that their council is there for them. They need to see action. They need to see that their council is doing whatever it can to help them through the current crisis and enable them to come back stronger. They want to see their council ease their burdens, not add to them. They want to know that their council is there for them. They want to know when they're going through tough times, their council understands and is prepared to act. They want to know that their council is working in their best interests. And with this budget, that's just what you get. Councillor Tomlinson is right to refer to our commitment to ease the tax burden whenever and wherever we can. And by not increasing our portion of the council tax, together with other measures that we have already taken, shows that this is not just an empty promise. By reducing the tax burden, by cutting services, is an empty gesture and doesn't do anybody any good at all. In this budget, not only will there be no cuts to services, but it brings with it an array of new initiatives and investments intended to expand those services. Support will continue for our communities and vulnerable families, as well as businesses, with ongoing support for those living in hardship. But in addition to that, there is a programme of investment designed to provide and deliver a whole host of measures that will make our borough a better place in which to live. Mayor, that's why in this budget, if you examine the detail and look at it in the round, you will see a prudent, progressive, positive, well-balanced budget with all the ingredients and a recipe to deliver a fairer, safer, healthier and happier South Ribble. It is a budget for the people, and that's why I'm proud to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Titherington. And the next person is Councillor Mary Greene.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to come back in this part of the meeting. Thank you. As I was saying before, I've listened with interest to the budget this evening, reference the council tax freeze, which I approve. And I also am pleased to see that my many requests for improvements to the Moss Side Village Centre playground have been included in the medium-term financial strategy for 2021-22 and 22-23. So therefore, I wish to thank Councillor Sue Jones for her invaluable support in this matter. Thank you, Councillor Jones. But going on from this, I am very disappointed at the voting this evening against the amendment which I feel contained help for the children and young people in this borough. Therefore, with a sad heart, I will not be able, unfortunately, to support the substantive motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greene. Have we got anybody else who wishes to... Sorry? Councillor Matthew Trafford.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking to support this because of the initiatives that it funds. This is a genuine budget with a real attempt to improve the quality of life for people. But the members that are supporting this budget and have contributed to it don't blame the parents of children in poverty for the reason that they're hungry. And we don't wash our hands with the mental health crisis and say that that isn't our responsibility. Instead, this budget acts as a shield for our residents that are being battered by national government, providing food for residents in poverty through no fault of their own, developing mental health initiatives for young people who would literally rather die than have to be on a 12-month waiting list that the government provides, and £250,000 on a green agenda after children in South Ribble were literally marching on the street for climate justice. And one of the things that is often overlooked that we're doing is ending the age discrimination that exists amongst apprentices employed by this council. That what we're doing is valuing the labour that they produce for the labour that they produce. What we're not doing is saying that because you haven't been here so many years and because of your age, you don't deserve to be paid for that what your labour is worth. So I think for that alone is enough to support this budget, and I'm proud to do so, and I will echo what my colleague Councillor Titherington said in this being a people's budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Trafford. I have Councillor Aniela and Councillor Bill Evans, and then Councillor Keith Martin. Okay, so Aniela, you're.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm speaking in support of this budget also. I'd like to speak for a few moments about and actually reflect about my personal experiences of living through crisis and how this council budget compares to previous budgets. 10 years ago, the country was going through another crisis, the financial crisis. After the initial crash, the government implemented austerity. And as a cabinet member for communities, I'd like to speak on behalf of families, as I have a young family of my own. In 2011, I was made redundant while pregnant with my second child, and my husband took a pay freeze for the following 2 years. Families cannot account for every unforeseen circumstance, and for those without savings, extra properties or investments, many were not protected from losing their homes, jobs or businesses, similar to the current crisis. This is why local authorities should have their ear to the ground and ensure that local people are not left behind by council budgets. I cannot tell you the number of times I've heard this same line. People shouldn't have children if they can't afford to feed them. Throughout this crisis and the last one, this is something which needs to be cleared up here. Nobody says before having a child, if we run out of money, we'll be able to rely on the food bank. And I suggest, rather than understanding food banks as a failure of individuals, we should see them as a failure of the government. A government which is failing to create a secure economy for the majority, good quality jobs, well-paid and secure jobs, and a government which is slowly eroding the safety net, changing the universal credit taper willy-nilly while increasing punitive measures on families in times of crisis. And local authorities have a role. Food bank usage has gone up 74% in the last 5 years, according to the Trussell Trust, and more in the northwest than anywhere else. I think we may all agree that people haven't become lazier over the last 5 years or wanted to have more children, thinking they can rely on the food bank. It's absurd. Rather, it's indicative of government failure, and it's no wonder when we look at these figures, the government is talking about levelling up. When my family and I reached crisis point 10 years ago, South Ribble Council and the budgets being voted through were not people-centred, like this budget today. The Conservatives were introducing brown bin charges and even started to charge council tax to those on job seekers' allowance on account of their dignity. South Ribble Council was not somewhere my family and I could turn for help. How things have changed. This budget is indicative of a caring, compassionate and responsible Labour and Liberal Democrat councillors working together. The holiday hunger scheme has been extended, we have an established food bank network and are set to introduce a credit union. Moving forwards, we'll look at retaining as much spending in South Ribble as we can with our brand new Community Wealth Building Action Plan, as well as creating opportunities for our younger residents to gain new skills and apprenticeships. Small businesses in South Ribble will be encouraged to win contracts which were previously unattainable. The contrast between this budget and previous ones in times of crisis is significant. I would like to finish by telling you that when we took over responsibility for the gateway, which is also the entrance to the Civic Centre, I was informed by officers that the previous Conservative administration had not allowed food bank collection to be permitted. The officers confirmed that the Conservative councillors deemed any donation point would be cluttered up in the entrance. Cluttered up the entrance. I think this is analogous with previous budgets in its consideration for local community throughout crisis. For families out there listening, we now collect and distribute both food and school uniforms in the entrance to the Civic Centre because we acknowledge that people are struggling and trying their best to get back on their feet through the current crisis, and this time we're here to help you do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Bill Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Cabinet member, my colleague for Finance and Assets, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, on setting such an outstanding budget. zero increase, and yet still maintaining existing services. I'm too close, is that better? Right. While maintaining existing services and indeed adding to them and improving our services. I'd like to, the Cabinet member mentioned thanks to all the staff in the building. I'd like to echo that as well, especially staff in planning. We've seen a massive surge in planning applications, and yet the staff in planning are going above and beyond coping with them. It's great to see further investment in business support, another £150,000 on top of what we've already done to support our local businesses is tremendous. Great to see further investment in housing, Mackenzie's Arms, Tom Hanson House, plus many more, hopefully, in the future. It's been mentioned about the regeneration of Leyland. Councillors will remember in October last year, I presented the Leyland Improvement Plan to this council prior to sending it off to government. Should we be successful in winning that money? I know it's been the amendment's been defeated, but included in that plan was support for start-up businesses, not just 18 to 25s, but anybody who wants to start up a business, we were going to support them. Hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next few weeks we'll get to know whether we won that £25 million or not. The regeneration of Penwitham has been mentioned. Yes, we're working up a master plan at the moment to regenerate the 3 district centres in Penwitham, Kingsford, Leyland Road and Liverpool Road. So I'm ever so proud to support this, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. And now Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to announce that I will be supporting this budget, and for a number of reasons, but I won't go through them all because they've already been said or will be said. My concentration will be obviously on the green initiatives, and what we do for our children may not appear at the time we do them, but we secure their future, not just as with jobs and employment, but with dignity and with a nice, clean place to live. We work hard. All of us work hard together to try and do that with recycling and trying to limit our journeys and what we do today on Zoom and Teams does help in our environment. So having £250,000 to forward that is a boon, and it's something that's I've never seen before with this council with such vigour, and to have 2 officers as well who are as dedicated to doing it, and of course the good work that previous councillors have done before me. I take up my new position soon, or with vigour, and we'll be looking forward to taking suggestions from councillors, and all councillors. You're welcome. I will even welcome I'd welcome comments from shadow councillors. We've got shadow councillors for the environment and things like that. We welcome comments from that. I'm also pleased also for people in Much Hall that the community centre is there. As we mentioned, food banks are needed everywhere in a borough, and hopefully the new centre will be a good place, a COVID secure place to set up a secure food bank for the people of Much Hall. So I will be supporting this budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anybody else? Councillor Ogilvie.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be supporting this budget tonight. There are certain aspects I could support, like the council tax freeze, which I'm pleased to see, and a number of other initiatives in it that I could support, but equally there are a number of initiatives in it which I can't support. I just want to say a few things from a slightly different angle. There's a huge number of appendices associated with this one vote tonight, and I just wanted to ask a couple of questions against some of these appendices. The general comments I don't want to repeat because many colleagues have made the same comments that I myself would make. Could I just ask a question on Appendix D, which features on page 71? And this is about the cumulative budget deficit. Towards the bottom of that page, there is interest receivable on short-term investments at £200,000 in 21-22, which is fine. But the same figure, 200,000, also appears in 22-23 and also in 23-24. So if that is indeed a cumulative figure, as the table suggests, could I ask why the council is not expecting to make any income from short-term investments in 2022 through to 2024? The other question I'd just like to ask is on Appendix H, which is on page 96, and it's about the council's risk appetite. This budget, as Councillor Tomlinson has alluded to, there are a number of significant financial risks associated with it. I don't think in my time as a councillor I've seen a budget that incorporates so many significant financial risks and assumptions in the budget that's been presented. In paragraph 29 on risk appetite, under the economic status, it says that the council will have a high risk appetite for appropriate investments expenditure in the borough. Could I just ask for some elaboration on what exactly is that high risk appetite and what's the financial limit on it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is James around, our budget expert? Are those questions for you then, James, do you think?
I can certainly, yeah.
I'm getting Councillor Tomlinson out of a hole, I think, here. I'm very good at that. Can you come back on what Councillor Ogilvie has asked? Thank you, James.
Okay, in terms of the first query, yes, you're right. It's very difficult with Appendix D to explain exactly how the budget moves year on year, but all I can say is the £200,000 income receivable, that's an annual budget every year that the council hopes to achieve. So it's not 200,000, then the next year it's 400,000, and then the next year it's 600,000. It is 200,000 a year. The cumulative aspect of that budget in Appendix D is at the top. It's more the expenditure rather than the stuff at the bottom. It's just very difficult to outline that without causing more confusion, really. So we did have a budget of 300,000, and this is outlined in the General Fund Assumptions Appendix F, but we've reduced that because of obviously the lower interest rates. So every year there will be a budget target of 200,000 from the cash balances that the council holds, and it's not cumulative. That's £200,000 a year. In terms of the risk appetite, I feel that's more a policy question, but we have included, as per the requirements of the government, to discuss our risk appetite in the capital strategy. I mean, the policy behind that was that the council would look to invest within the borough, really, and that it would put funds aside, as it has done in the past, to invest in opportunities within the borough if those things, if those opportunities came up, really. So that's what that was trying to outline.
Thank you, James. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Ogilvie, or do you want to come back on it? I'm only asking. I'm being polite. Behave yourselves.
Yeah, could I come back? Yeah.
Yes, I will allow you to come back.
Yeah, just very quickly, just on the issue of the cumulative budget figures, yes, it's not consistent because it's not just the top half that's cumulative. If you look at, for example, under savings, the shared services phase 1, they are shown as cumulative, and that's in the same section as the interest receivable is. So you've treated two lines differently in the same section of that, which is confusing and really not very helpful. And if I'm picking you up right, are you saying that in terms of high risk appetite, the council is accepting that investments within the borough are in fact high risk?
Thank you, Councillor Over. James, can you answer that? And be quick, because we're all going to go to sleep here if we don't.
Okay, so I can reassure you the figures in Appendix D are correct. Other than that, I can't really say much more about that. I'm sorry that they were confusing, but they are correct. In terms of risk appetite, no, absolutely not. Every investment within the borough would be assessed based on the the business plans that were presented to service leads, directors, and of course the Section 151 officer. So we're not saying we would accept higher risk proposals within the borough. It's just probably what it is saying is that we'd be more open to investments within the borough as a result of the fact that they are within the borough. Really, that's what that's trying to say. So again, that's comes down to the policies that would be agreed in the future. Really. So.
Thank you, James. I now have Councillor Michael Greene.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just warm my hands. And thanks for bringing me in. Can I begin by saying that there are some initiatives contained within the budget this evening which are very laudable, and many of the initiatives with which I would support. I'll pick out a particular example. It's already been referred to. But I welcome the introduction of the playground improvements at Moss Side Village Green in the medium-term financial strategy. And again, I would place my thanks on record to Councillor Mrs Jones and our council officers for their support after Councillor Greene and myself had raised the need for improvements at that playground. And she took those on board and included this in the budget moving forward. So thank you for doing that. In particular as well, I would support the council tax freeze which is being put forward this evening. As a Conservative, I believe that taxes should always be kept as low as possible and only increased when absolutely necessary. And clearly it's not necessary within South Ibbles finances this evening, so I do support that freeze. Unfortunately, there are a number of aspects that remain within the budget with which I'm unable to support, as I don't think they are the best way of taking the borough forward, and in particular improving the economy for the benefit of South Ibble residents, some of which were referred to in our budget amendment earlier, which fell. So on that basis, unfortunately, I won't be able to support this budget this evening, but I do look forward to some of the initiatives coming forward over the year to come. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greene. I have Councillor Thornball.
Thank you, Mayor. The budget, I'll have to give, has been put together rather well. There's been a lot of work put into it, and I commend the officers and the members for putting it together. There are quite a lot of things in there that are exemplary. But there has also been a lot of political backslapping tonight about this, and oh look what we have done. But you're forgetting the word burden, as Councillor Titherington said. At the end of this budget, we declare that we will be borrowing £62 million. Where's the burden? Who will be picking that burden up? It will be the residents of South Ribble who will be picking that burden up, including myself as a resident of South Ribble. That's a burden that I would not support. And to answer Councillor Belinsky-Gelder's questions about her husband having to take a pay freeze and her being made redundant, I apologise for you being made redundant, Councillor Belinsky-Gelder. I really, really do. We've got to have a budget that's balanced and that doesn't put this massive burden on South Ribble, but which this Labour administration is about to do.
Thank you, Councillor. I didn't realise you'd finished. Councillor Wharton-Hardman, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to comment to support the funds put into the budget to support local families with their daily food needs and also their living costs with the freeze on council tax across the borough. Whilst I mentioned earlier on the amendment, I'd like to see additional money put into support with IT hardware for young people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and as we've discussed tonight, brought on through no fault of their own. I do hope that the council and will take this opportunity to ask that the leader take this forward to review after this meeting with respect to enhancing the current scheme approved under the emergency powers recently. The main food bank for Leyland and surrounding areas, and I know many of my residents from Farrington also use this, is run from St Mary's Priory in Broadfield Drive. And they now have a client base of over 200 people, some single, some families, some working on low wages and others relying on benefits. They have some clients visit weekly whilst others go occasionally as the need arises, and they regularly give between 120 and 140 bags of food to 80 to 100 clients weekly, and any support as a council we can give, I am sure, will be wholeheartedly welcome. So I support the money in the budget for the holiday hunger scheme. This has been a year of many challenges for all of us. Many in our community have suffered greatly, and we are more than ever with this budget serving people in our community who are less fortunate than many of us by supporting those who have suffered much hardship in this most unusual year where so many things have changed and been affected by this terrible pandemic. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and let us hope that with the aspects of this budget, including the hunger scheme, freezing council tax, along with the continued abolition of the council tax support scheme, we, this council, have brought light and some relief to our fellow citizens. I will be supporting the administration's budget this evening.
Thank you, Councillor. And now, Councillor Mrs Smith.
Thank you. There's a couple of things I'd just like to say this evening regarding the budget, and I think it has been said by a number of my members of the group that we do welcome no rise in the council tax. I think that is the correct way to go forward this evening. We also have some reservations about some of the other initiatives that are actually in the budget, and therefore we don't feel able to support the budget this evening, which is a great shame. But that's the way it is. There's a couple of things also that I would just like to pick up on that has been said this evening. Councillor Belinsky-Gelder commented that the Gateway was not allowed to have a food bank because it was cluttered up. And she mentioned officers had said that. I have never, ever heard that. And as far as I am aware, it was never, ever a situation where there couldn't have been a food bank in the Gateway area. So I don't know where on earth she's got that idea from or who has said it to her. But if that is the case, I'd be quite happy to receive the information because obviously it would look like it has actually been part of the council's Conservative administration that said that. And that's not true as far as I am aware. Also, Mayor, I just wondered, have we broken with protocol this evening by asking an officer to actually reply to questions? I've never heard that before. I think normally we don't have officers replying to questions within the council. It's normally left to the portfolio holder. It's just a comment, and I just wondered if we'd broken with protocol on that basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. No, we haven't broken any protocols there because it was a technical question about finances, which are sort of not in the remit of the cabinet members. So no, we haven't broken protocol there. So thank you. And our officers are experts. Let's have it right. And not all of us are experts in all sorts. So that's why we have our officers. Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully support the freezing the council tax, and would thank the officers and the members who put this budget together. But I really feel that if the amendments had been accepted, we would have been able to help a lot more residents of South Ribble. And for that reason, I won't be supporting this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. Councillor Lomax?
Yeah, just to say, I will be voting for this budget. I'd just like to say how sorry I was to hear the Labour government being blamed for austerity. It was the Conservative government that brought in austerity. It was they who did the cuts to the police, they that did the cuts to the hospital, they that did the cuts to transport, they that cut social services, they attacked the poor. And to actually have it brought up here that the Labour...
Councillor,
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lomax. Sorry. Councillor Alty.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I will be voting to support the budget. I am absolutely delighted to be part of a progressive administration. I think some councillors seem to have selective memories. 10 years ago is a long time, and maybe global collapses of international policies and lots of other financial collapses that were happening at the time have all been laid at a Labour administration. I'm not going with that. However, just wanted to say, so pleased to be part of it, and levelling up is a bandied about term, and it's only when you get to the detail and you can see what a progressive, forward thinking, people centred, policy driven council can achieve that you really begin to understand what levelling up actually means, and finding some level of equality where inequality is rife. So I'm just thankful to be part of this administration. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, is there anybody else wants to say anything before I bring in Councillor Tomlinson? Or is Councillor Foster?
Thanks, Mayor. Just before I formally move on to my prepared speech seconding the budget, I would just like to state a couple of points. I'm really struggling to understand how the opposition, Mayor, can welcome the majority of the budget and the initiatives, but have reservations and then not state at all what any of those reservations are, Mayor. I can't understand how Councillor Mrs Greene can thank us publicly for the provision of the Moss Side playground improvements, but then is going to vote against it, so it can't be implemented. I don't understand that, Mayor. I don't understand how Conservative members of this council can vote against holiday hunger, can vote against COVID support for businesses, can vote against the provision of council homes, can vote against continued COVID support for our residents, can vote against no increase to council tax, can vote against the implementation of a £25 million town fund, if that comes in next month, and can vote against the climate emergency strategic plans because they have reservations elsewhere that they can't tell anybody. And what I will say, Mayor, before I move on to my speech, is we will absolutely hold every single one of them to account about this and remind them about this at every single opportunity. There's times when you oppose, and there's also then times when you just do the right thing by your local community. Mayor, it is now my pleasure to formally second the substantive budget as presented to Council, most eloquently, as always, by my esteemed colleague, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Matthew and the team have yet again worked tirelessly behind the scenes to deliver what many would argue is the most comprehensive and genuinely exciting budget this Council has been presented with in many, many years. We all agreed that the new corporate plan, approved by Council back in September, was a huge step forward for the entire borough, and now Matthew has ensured it is fully affordable and deliverable. To Matthew, to our officers, particularly the Acting Chief Finance Officer James Thompson, a huge thank you for all your efforts. I'd also like to publicly thank Councillor David Howarth and the members of the Liberal Democrat group for their continued supply and confident support to what is a Labour minority administration that I have the huge privilege of leading. They scrutinise the work of the administration and support the development of policies, Mayor, that ensure the entire community of South Ribble is supported, encouraged and extended every opportunity that this council can possibly deliver. The Labour and Liberal Democrat groups are similar in many ways, in that the ongoing development of our borough and our communities are our only priority. Our only priority. And so common policies are not too difficult to develop. Mayor, despite what has most certainly been one of the most challenging years in decades, I am proud to report to Council that the authority is in a really good place. The response to the pandemic has demanded the best from our officers, the best from the administration, and we have delivered to a standard that truly humbles me. Our communities have pulled together tremendously, and with our continued support, we now all hopefully have a light flickering at the end of a very long tunnel. A light directing us out of this awful pandemic. Let us not forget, however, the past 12 months, the appalling deaths, the numerous challenges, whether they be financial, mental health related, loneliness, or struggling to feed our families. For many within our community, it is all of the above, Mayor. And so it's really reassuring that this COVID-19 recovery budget, presented by Councillor Tomlinson, takes on these challenges with direct intervention support continuing, and will always continue under a council led by people who genuinely care. Let me remind Council quickly of the key proposals and investments being proposed. A freeze in council tax, over £700,000 of revenue investment into key priority areas across the entire borough, over 62 million of capital investment into our borough's leisure facilities, extra care facilities for the elderly, council housing, sports facilities, parks, open spaces and the regeneration of our high streets. An additional £150,000 to develop a credit union, a facility that unfortunately will be in high demand from day one. An additional £150,000 to support the highly exciting Community Wealth Building Action Plan. An additional £500,000 to support improvements to our community facilities. An additional £50,000 to support and deliver initiatives recognising the mental health challenges our community now faces. A minimum of £60,000 to support vulnerable families and children by providing access to food during school holidays for the next 4 years. And finally, a minimum of £150,000 for direct support for local businesses impacted by COVID, with an option for this to increase to up to £500,000. Add to this the huge opportunities that have been developed in conjunction with our neighbours and friends at Chorley Borough Council with our shared services agenda. It cannot be understated the hugely positive impact the shared services are having on both authorities, making us a combined force in central Lancashire second to none. It is this type of joint working, two councils with common agendas, driving them forward with a shared management team that will, I am convinced, be replicated far and wide across the region. Mayor, yes, you have all this, investment, initiatives, community and business support, house building and much, much more, with no increase to council tax. And this is being delivered, arguably, during the most significant pandemic to hit us in over 100 years. Someone, somewhere, is most certainly doing the right thing. Perhaps it's the administration, Mayor. I'm going to close and use one of Councillor Tomlinson's analogies, as in many ways it sums up the evening perfectly. The good ship HMS South Ribble was most certainly in troubled waters, suffering years of neglect and hostility from the then Conservative crew. On a sunny day back in May 2019, she was boarded and taken over, and the realisation straight away was that the damage was far, far worse than first envisaged. HMS South Ribble was sent for a thorough refit. A new senior crew was recruited to support those that had bravely stood by their vessel and she underwent a significant change. Now, no longer at the back of the queue, struggling to stay afloat, she's a brand new gleaming image. A new branding she is proud to share. She has new purpose, new priorities, and leads the way as the flagship of the Lancashire Fleet. Mayor, she will continue to sail through the choppy waters of COVID, but nothing now will hold her back. I commend this budget to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I'm just thinking that I must be that statue at the front. Do you know what I mean? But I am not taking my clothes off. But that's what it is. So I'm this, what they called it, I'm trying to think what they called, the figurehead. Figurehead, yeah. I'll go for the figurehead. Right, Councillor Tomlinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't take up too much time in summing up. There's been an awful lot said. Can I thank my Cabinet colleagues, as well as other Labour Group colleagues, and Councillor Howarth for their support. Do you know, I genuinely thought that tonight, having seen the Conservative very brief amendment, we discussed the amendment, it get voted through, and then the Conservative group would either abstain or vote for this because it is such a positive budget, but they just can't bring themselves to do it. And you know, we like an analogy, and I was struggling with this one, but it's like being offered 100 cases of free wine and refusing the lot because one of the cases is Chardonnay and your wife doesn't like Chardonnay. I mean, there's so much in this budget that is to be welcomed by so many of our residents. And the Conservatives, let me remind you, the Conservatives are now poised to vote against. And they'll be voting against everything that's in this budget. They'll be voting against a freezing council tax. They'll be voting against help for children who are hungry in school holidays. They'll be voting against investment in our parks and playgrounds. They'll be voting against the Green Links programme. They'll be voting against supporting the CAB, and they'll be voting against having a credit union in our borough. That's the corner they seem to have backed themselves into. Can I just highlight one or two of the points that were made that I do think need responding to? Councillor Ogilvie, within his rather technical questions that had us all, scrabbling through the agenda to try and find out what it was he was asking, mentioned the fact he's never seen a report with so much potential risk highlighted in at the budget time. And it's because we're being honest with this report. We're being honest. And actually, we've known about the fair funding review, and we've known about the changes to the business rates pooling scheme for 3-4 years. And when the Conservatives were in charge, they refused to put that risk in their medium-term financial strategy. And we're not refusing to put it in because it's a very real risk to this authority, and we think it's appropriate that members know about it. So that's why there is so much risk highlighted. I was very explicit in highlighting that risk, and I did that for a very good reason. Councillor Thirlbourne, first of all, can I say the Mayor might have accepted your apology for your appalling release of sensitive personal information about another member. It remains to be seen whether other members will accept your apology. I have a feeling that maybe they won't. But there is a lesson for all councillors. When you're speaking off the cuff, be very, very careful what you say. And he spoke about the borrowing burden on the residents of South Ribble. Can I point out what we're borrowing for? We're borrowing for some significant investments in this borough. A new leisure centre won't come about by shaking the cushions at the back of the settee to see what falls out. A new leisure centre will come about through judicious borrowing over a long period of time that we are certain we can afford. And I know he wasn't here then, but all those flawed figures that we remember Councillor Phil Smith putting forward about the imaginary leisure centre that they thought they could build, that was based on borrowing. That was based on borrowing. So the idea that we can do all this wonderful stuff without borrowing, frankly, is financial nonsense. To Councillor Wharton-Hardman, first of all, I thank him for his supportive comments. They're genuinely appreciated. If he wants to have an influence on next year's budget, If he wants to talk to us about what we're doing with the holiday hunger scheme and where like that, I make the same offer to him that I've made to all councillors ever since I took over this portfolio. Come and talk to us. Do you know, in the 2 years I've been doing this, I'm only aware of genuine approaches from Conservative councillors on two issues, and they were both to Councillor Sue Jones when she was a cabinet member, and they were around Bellis Park Playground, and they were around Moss Side Village Green Playground. And guess what? A genuine approach from a concerned councillor to an open cabinet who were prepared to listen to genuine ideas, and both projects are coming to fruition. That's how you influence what's going on. So, and I make that now offer to all the Conservative group, as well as Councillor Wharton-Hardman. If you genuinely want to influence the work of this council, the way to do it is to come in and discuss your ideas and not wait until the morning of the budget and produce a side of A4 saying these are the pet projects we want to do. And then finally, Councillor Yates specifically said this. He won't support ours because their amendments want to help more people than ours do. One of your amendments, Councillor Yates, that you voted for and now you're saying you're not going to vote for us, was to not have 150,000 in a general pot to help post-COVID recovery, and instead to only give it to 18 to 25-year-olds. That was what your amendment said. Whether you genuinely understood it or not, I don't know, but that's what your amendment said. So actually, your amendment was helping less people potentially than our amendment is. So, your argument completely and utterly falls flat on its face. But you vote against it, Councillor Yates and all the others. Vote against, as I said, a freezing council tax. Vote against multi-million-pound investment in parks. Vote against new playgrounds. Vote against the green links. Vote against all the other exciting things that I've proposed here. And we'll remind the residents of South Ribble exactly what you voted against. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I propose we move to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. There haven't been any written representations from any members of the public, so I think we can go to the vote. But would people like to be reminded of the recommendations? I'm only saying because somebody at home might have gone and brewed up now, you see, and they'll miss it. So I think it's really important, it's a really important vote, that you know exactly what you're voting for. That's the mother in me. Do you really know what you're doing? And please, listen to the recommendations. Are you going to read them?
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendations are contained in paragraph 2 of agenda item 8. And the recommendations are that the Cabinet recommends that Council, so this is the Council, to approve the budget and proposals set out in this report, including the Council Tax Resolution at Appendix A, note to the Parish Precepts at Appendix B, the Council's Medium-Term Financial Strategy at Appendix C, the Council's Forecast Cumulative Budget Deficit and Budget Strategy 2021 to 22 to 2023 to 24 at Appendix D, the significant budget movements from the 2020-21 budget at Appendix E, the General Fund Forecast Assumptions at Appendix F, the Capital Programme for 2021 and to 2023-24 at Appendixes G1, G2 and G3, the Capital Strategy at Appendix 4, the Treasury Management Strategy at Appendix I, and the advice of the Treasury Management Consultants at Appendix I1, the Council's pay policy at Appendix J and the publication of that on the Council's website from April 2021, the advice of the Statutory Finance Officer in relation to the robustness of the budget and the risk contained within it, as set out in the statutory report at Appendix K, the budget consultation responses at 2021 for 2021-22 report at Appendix L, the assessment of the impact of the budget proposals 2021-22 report at Appendix M, and the recommendations in the fees and charges report at Appendix N.
Well done. Well done. Can I just remind you that we are taking one vote to cover the budget, the council tax setting and all the other issues. It's not a separate vote as it has been in the past. So just to remind everybody.
I'd like to say well done to Mr. Moister for that presentation.
That will be Councillor Caleb Tomlinson, I believe. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Yes, one has one's advantage being the mayor because you can sort of ask somebody else to do it.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. My mother will be very proud of my reading. So I'll now take the vote.
I'm sorry, Councillor Greene, we're moving to the vote now, so it's a bit late. Sorry about that.
There's a problem why we can't approve all this on block rather than taking them as separate items, Mayor.
Councillor Greene, that is the proposal to take all items as a single vote. That's why they were all read out on block. Okay, we'll move to the vote. The vote, as it's the budget, will be done on roll call again. I'll read out each councillor's name in turn, and if the councillor can indicate for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Alty.
For.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Blow.
For.
Councillor Bretherton.
That's mine.
Yeah, I'd just like to say,
Sorry, Councillor Bretherton. It's Councillor Bretherton. We're voting. It's for, against, or abstain.
it's abstain.
Councillor Bilinski-Gelder.
For.
Councillor Campbell.
Abstain.
Councillor Chisholm.
Abstain.
Councillor Clark.
Abstain.
Councillor Coulton.
Abstain.
Councillor Donoghue.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Flannery.
For.
Councillor Forrest.
For.
Councillor Foster. Councillor Mary Greene.
Abstain.
Councillor Michael Greene.
Abstain.
Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Hesketh.
Abstain.
Councillor Higgins. Councillor Howarth.
For.
Councillor Hughes.
Sorry, pass. I'm away.
Is that abstain, Councillor Hughes?
Yes, please. No, it means fast. Yes, please.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Lomax.
For.
Councillor Marsh. Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Melia.
For.
Councillor Moon.
Abstain.
Councillor Mort.
Abstain.
Councillor Mullineaux.
Abstain.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Abstain.
Councillor Rainsbury.
Abstain.
Councillor Sharples.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor Margaret Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Suthers.
Abstain.
Sorry, members, can you please just mute your microphone? Thank you. Councillor Phil.
Abstain.
Councillor Titherington.
For.
Councillor Caleb Tomlinson.
4.
Councillor Matthew Tomlinson.
4.
Councillor Trafford.
4.
Councillor Turner.
4.
Councillor Walton.
Abstain.
Councillor Watkinson.
4.
Councillor Watson.
Abstain.
Councillor Wharton-Hardman.
4.
Councillor Wooldridge.
4.
Councillor Yates.
Abstain.
The budget and associated papers have been passed. 27 votes for, 22 abstentions.
We now go on to item, I haven't got my glasses on, item 9, which is questions to the Leader of the Council. Are there any questions for the Leader of the Council from any member? Nobody's indicating. Let us move on then, swiftly. Questions to members of the Cabinet, and we'll take them in the order. Are there any questions to the Health and Wellbeing, Councillor McTitherington? No indication. Great. Questions to Councillor Aniela Binlinski-Gelder? No indications. Oh, good, we might go home in a minute. Yeah. Questions Cabinet Finance, Property and Assets, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Any questions? Why? Do you want to ask him a question? Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a question for my esteemed colleague. What's Councillor Matthew Tomlinson's thoughts on understanding why the Conservative group, having just publicly stated they were going to vote against our budget, suddenly did what's quite possibly one of the biggest U-turns in Lancashire today and suddenly abstain? Why do you think they've just done that?
Councillor Ogilvie next.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I've had some comments from nearby residents to Worden Park a bit concerned about groups congregating within the park. Now, as lockdown eases off, then that problem will potentially become worse. I know we have notices pinned up on the boards at entry points to the park, but I'm just wondering, could I ask him to reassess the signage actually within the park itself to see if that could possibly be improved, just to hammer home the message over the next few months?
Ogilvie. Thank you, Councillor Ogilvie. And now Councillor Michael Greene.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Can I go back to the subject, Councillor Tomlinson, of tackling digital exclusion that we referred to in our budget amendment earlier this evening? And I've placed on record that the scheme that South Ribble put forward, the £20,000 scheme, as you correctly said, to fill the gaps which have been left by significant funding from government and £1 million from the county council. But this was to fill the gaps in certain areas. I think it was a very laudable scheme and allowed the council to purchase, I believe, 151 tablets to help some of the most deprived children within the borough. And I make reference to the press release which you put out at the time, saying that it filled you with pride to create opportunities for those who are not afforded them. And I would wholeheartedly agree with those comments. However, this evening, I don't know whether this was inadvertent or not, you appeared, Councillor Tomlinson, to be making some criticism of the Moss Side population, in that you said that they either weren't understanding or were misleading the position. And you actually stated this is not, and there's never has been, ward specific. We are not discriminating against the children in Moss Side. Well, that, Councillor Tomlinson, is not the impression of many residents across Moss Side who have raised this as a concern, because that appears to be exactly what is happening, because there are some children who are digitally excluded in the Moss Side community and who would have been able to take advantage of this had the option been available to schools in the Moss Side area. So could you confirm that what you actually stated this evening, in that it has never been ward specific, is actually the true statement of facts, Councillor Tomlinson?
Thank you, Councillor Greene. Do you want to come back on that? Oh, sorry, there's Councillor Mrs Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. Would Councillor Tomlinson agree with me, and I hope we all love that comment, that the Conservatives never actually said we were voting against the budget? What we said was we couldn't support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Smith's already asked the question.
Thank you, Councillor. I've not got anybody else. No.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions, because I've not had a very busy night, so it's nice to have something to do. I think, first of all, Councillor Foster asked a question about what has prompted such an about face. Quite possibly, it's always been your intention to abstain. Who knows? What I would like to think is that the power of my words and the support of my cabinet colleagues persuaded you that you couldn't possibly vote against such a wonderful budget. But what was clear through the debate, that you weren't prepared to support us. And that's the message that I'll take back tonight, and I make no apologies for repeating my words. The Conservative group tonight refused to support a cut in a freeze in council tax. The Conservative group refused to support multi-million-pound investment in parks. The Conservative group refused to support investment in playgrounds that haven't had money spent on them for years. The Conservative group refused to support more money for food banks. The Conservative group refused to support a holiday hunger scheme to make sure no South Ribble child goes hungry. That's what you refused to support, and I'll be quite happy to tell residents who want to listen. Councillor Ogilvie, thank you for your question. We have been working just this week, actually, with the local police on this issue. We are aware of a couple of issues on the park. One, we have been getting some smallish groups, but nonetheless groups of people congregating. And we're also aware that a lot of the visitors to our park are really stretching the definition of local car journeys. So we continue to work closely with the police on that, and I'm sure that your residents who've raised that with you will be reassured. Councillor Greene, I was very careful. I did not criticise the Moss Side population, and I would never ever seek to do that. What I did suggest was that there were some people who may either, because they didn't understand or deliberately wanted to cause confusion, have been alleging that we were deliberately discriminating against people who lived in places like Moss Side. Let's be clear what I said when we decided to fund this, that we would look to work with schools in the most deprived areas, schools where there was most free school meals, because this was all about filling the gaps that may not have been filled by other people. Now, when you look at our schools, they're not ward specific. So St Anne's Primary School takes children from a wide range of wards and would definitely have been one on the list. Seven Stars Primary School, again, takes children from Moss Side Ward, and again would not be, would have been on the list that we would have spoke to. Not ward specific, but very much targeted at deprivation. And finally, Councillor Mrs Smith, I don't know whether the Conservative group think they've done something, you know, we get these all clever legalese, oh, well, we didn't vote against it. Well, you didn't vote against it, but you didn't support it. All this wonderful stuff that we've done, and you couldn't bring yourself to support it. And at the risk of repeating myself, you didn't support a freeze in council tax. You didn't support multi-million-pound investment in parks. You didn't support improvements on playgrounds where no money's been spent for years. You didn't support a holiday hunger scheme. You didn't support monies for COVID recovery. Businesses, we all know what your leader said about business, and it's a phrase that couldn't be possibly repeated in mixed company. You couldn't support that. You might think you've pulled a fast one here. I'm afraid I think you're wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Right, and I will now turn the page over and I will say, questions to the Cabinet Member for Planning, Business Support and Regeneration, Councillor Bill Evans. Are there any questions for Councillor Evans? No indication. I have no urgent items. I can now declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody at home. Thank you for everybody watching on YouTube. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. You know, have a glass of wine, a cup of coffee, or go to bed. You know, whatever you're going to do. But thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for debate. Thank you for staying friends. In these times, we need to be friends and be kind to each other. Thank you.